welcome to another episode of the MMA Lockcast. I'm your host, Manpreet, aka MMA Lock of the Night, your boy on social media, and your boy behind the MMA Fight Archive, ensuring you leave no stone unturned when you're researching these upcoming MMA events. We just are close to surpassing 5,500 fighter profiles spanning 20 different promotions from all over the world, surpassing 115 subscribers as well. It's going to be very useful for the upcoming Contender Series, but also very useful for this PFL Europe card I'm about to break down for you guys, so you know exactly what to expect when these fighters step foot inside the cage, as we have as many direct links as you could possibly find on all of these fighters. There's a 7-day free trial. Check it out with the link in the description below. There you guys go. 7-day free trial for the MMA Fight Archive. All right. We're going to be talking about PFL Europe 2 2025. It is headlined by, forgetting it off the top of my head, Patrick Habirora going up against former UFC fighter Danny Roberts. Habirora is a very popular fighter over there in Belgium/France. Has a huge following. I think he has like 350,000 Instagram followers. He only has a handful of professional MMA fights thus far, but he did have a long, I believe about 25 amateur fights as well. So maybe that's where he was able to get a lot of his following. But skilled fighter. I'll break it down for you guys pretty quickly. The fight's actually start in about 12 hours or so. So I'm gonna quick picks-ish through this. So maybe 15 to 20 minutes. I said that last time and I went almost half an hour. So I'm gonna be a lot more concise with it for you guys here, so you guys can hear my picks and my predictions sooner than later. Just another quick thing. I always get questions in the comment section. What is your most confident play? What is your most confident predictions? Go to the video. If you can't figure out by what I'm trying to say, I'll always link my most confident plays, predictions, final plays, and predictions post from Patreon in the comment section below. So if you want to just cheat on the test and just get right to the answers, you guys can check out that link down there. Couple bucks for your boy to for all the work that I've been doing to put these together for you guys. So that's how you guys can find that out. All right, let's get right into this 16 fight card for PFL Europe 2. First matchup up, Salvo Giudice coming in at minus 205, going up against Bryce Belghazi, comes in at plus 170. Belghazi is very aggressive, but mainly a can crusher, and I think Giudice should be able to nullify him on the mat, keep him there, maybe have some success for Belghazi with a couple of submission attempts, maybe some scrambles, but he makes too many mistakes, and I think Giudice will make him pay for it, and I think he'll grind this fight out, but minus 205 is not a number I want to tie myself to here. Next up, we got Fadi Khaled coming in at plus 140, going up against Levi Batchelor, who comes in at minus 170. Khaled is a solid Muay Thai and kickboxing practitioner. He shared the ring and some Muay Thai time with Rodtang and Superlek. He went to a decision with both of those guys, so very durable, very difficult to put away. His grappling still needs some improvements. Obviously, he's had 59 plus striking battles, but only 2 professional mixed martial arts fights. He did pull off an armbar in one of them, but the other one he did not look as comfortable in the grappling realm, although he did manage to get to a dominant position and get the TKO finish. But this will be his first test against a guy that will give him legitimate resistance as a mixed martial artist. Batchelor trains alongside Jack Shore and that family, so you know exactly what to expect. He looks to take opponents to the ground and smash them from that top position, and I'm expecting him to do that here with relative ease against Khaled. With that said, there will be some sweaty moments in the striking realm considering the Muay Thai that Khaled brings, but I think Batchelor will be able to get a hold of him, drag him to the ground, and show him that he is not ready for that level of grappling. Next up, we got Adam Meskini coming in at minus 120, going up against Tiziano Ferranti, who comes in at minus 110. Some of the odds for a lot of these matchups will be all over the place because it seems like BetOnline adds a lot of vig before the fights actually start. So maybe on fight day, they'll try to make it more reasonable. Like this should be minus 110, minus 110. You'll see a couple other, examples of it as I get through this card, but don't blame me. I'm just going with BetOnline is telling me just over 12 hours away from the fights, and those are the odds I'm going to use for the purpose of this video. Meskini is usually a tepid-pace kickboxing specialist. He likes to pick opponents apart, but in his last couple of fights, we've seen him use a little bit more of a grueling, grinding approach, whether it's with his grappling or in the clinch, and I think he'll be able to put it on Ferranti here, who might be the slightly better kickboxer, but I think Ferranti will struggle to keep this at range, and I ultimately think that this will be a fight that primarily plays out with Meskini pushing him against the cage and making it look a lot easier as this fight gets into deeper water, as Ferranti does not have a good gas tank, and we often see that when he's unable to get that early finish. So look for Meskini to grind this fight out or get a late finish. Next up, we got Polina Wisniewska coming in at minus 1,800, going up against Jessica Cunha, who comes in at plus 700. Cunha has some decent experience, but Wisniewska is definitely the better fighter. She's crisper in the striking realm. She's more dangerous in the grappling realm, and I expect her to squash Cunha here, but we do not parlay minus 1,800 around these parts. The last PFL card, not PFL MENA, but the previous one to that showed us exactly why. Biagio Ali Walsh fumbling the bag there against a guy that's relatively unknown. It could happen. That's how volatile the sport is, but I still think Wisniewska goes out there and cruises. Next up, we got Julian Pierre Lopez coming in at plus 285, going up against Jan Cieplowski, who comes in at minus 460. Now, Cieplowski utilizes a ton of range and footwork to keep his opponents at bay and utilizing straight shots down the pipe. One thing I love about when he enters the pocket, he ensures he is the cleaner and straighter fighter by landing straight shots rather than winging shots. There are a few winging shots that he lands, but he often makes it more effective by waiting for the counters and going over top the shoulder of his opponents. But it's often those straight shots down the pipe that make him so successful. And that's going to be very important for him here as he goes up against a very volatile Pierre Lopez, who had a solid win against Dominic Wooding, but in his last matchup against Alexander Luster showed the issues in his game. He might be able to crack and land with some solid power, but he very much struggles in the technical aspects of the game, whether it's from the striking realm, where opponents are often able to counter him and make him pay for his wild winging shots, or on the ground where he has a decent front choke game, but outside of that, he's very behind it in terms of the submission defense where opponents can take advantage of him. So this is a spot where I think Cieplowski will do a great job in terms of keeping at distance, countering him, and I think he'll be able to muster up a finish within a round and a half, but we don't know if PFL Europe will be dropping totals or not. But I'll go Cieplowski, I should say, to win this fight relatively easily. All right, next up, we got Anas Azizoun coming in at minus 150, going up against Gustavo Oliveira, who comes in at plus 120. Now, Azizoun is similar to Jan in the fact that he likes to keep his range and pick opponents apart from distance. He has a long, lanky frame that helps him exaggerate how good his striking is by keeping opponents on the end of his punches, and he utilizes good footwork to maintain that distance. We haven't seen him fully tested in the grappling realm, which is where I have my question marks about him, because if he has a good enough offensive grappling game, it will come in play for him here against Gustavo Oliveira, who has often found himself behind fights where guys often look to take him to the ground. Even 2 years ago, in his second KSW fight, I thought he was a couple minutes away from losing a decision in a fight where he could not get up from his back in the first and second rounds, but luckily he landed a nasty spinning back elbow that caused a fight-ending cut on his opponent. Now, it's been 2 years since he's seen MMA competition, but he has been competing for karate combat, showcasing that he is way more of a striker than a mixed martial artist. He has the power to make things interesting here, especially for Azizoun, who's coming off of his first pro loss where he got knocked out by an 8-1 fighter, and that was a matchup where his opponent landed a perfect body shot and did not relent until he got him out of there, and Oliveira is more than capable of doing that. But I think we'll see Azizoun utilize a good overall mixed martial arts game. I think we'll see him pick apart Oliveira from distance, and seeing such a glaring hole in Oliveira's game, you have to assume that Azizoun is going to be looking to try to get this fight into the grappling realm in certain spots, especially if he feels that Oliveira is starting to get into a groove with his striking. I don't have the confidence because I have not seen him take that approach on tape yet, but he's still pretty young in his game, and I think he could be capable of making those types of adjustments in his game, which is why I'm going to take him to win this fight, but I'll likely pass on in terms of actually taking a shot there. Our next up, we got Nicholas DeFranco coming in at plus 115, going up against Catalin Safta, who comes in at minus 155. Now, DeFranco's brother, Sebastian DeFranco, actually defeated Catalin Safta a couple years ago, back when he was able to just keep Safta up against the cage and Muslim, pretty much stall out that entire matchup. Nicholas, even though he shares the same record as his brother, is not as good as him. He is only good when he can dictate the pace, start walking opponents down, and pretty much can crushing most of the guys that he's going up against. But when guys are able to dictate the pace against him and take the momentum in fights, that's where we see him start to falter, start to show some issues in his game, and that's where I think Safta will be able to take advantage of him. Safta is a guy who's had some solid strength of schedule as of late. Even in his loss to Patrick Habirora, he showcased that he can be very game, but he just could not handle the athleticism, speed, and power of Habirora that night. Luckily for him, he doesn't have to worry about that here against DeFranco, and I think that will allow Safta to really control this matchup, and I think he might even be able to get a finish in the third round of this matchup. But I really like Safta here, and it seems like the public is starting to pour on him as well, as this was closer to a pick'em just a few hours ago, and now we see Safta up at minus 155. Next up, we got Mahio Campanella coming in at minus 125, going up against Matis Zaharovs, who comes in at minus 115. Now, Campanella is riding a 4-fight winning streak after suffering his first pro loss back in March of 2023. That night, he went up against a similar fighter who takes fights into the grappling realm immediately and looks to sink in submissions or get ground and pound finishes. That's exactly what Campanella looks to do, and that's what he was able to do last time around in his PFL debut. But what I was most impressed by was his matchup against Giovanni Fernandez, who is a very game regional fighter, and Campanella was able to slap on a rear naked choke and force the tap against him in the first round. But I think he's going to struggle against the guy in Zaharovs, who has a crazy strength of schedule for a guy still on the regional scene. He had an absolute beatdown of Brian Hislop last September, and that often showcases where he was most strongest. He's a very good Muay Thai specialist, has some good aggressiveness with his striking, but also very crafty in the jiu-jitsu realm, which is ultimately how he ended up getting that win. But he went 15 minutes with Lewis McGrillen, taking everything that guy had and returning with some solid success of his own, but he just could not keep up with the power there. Zaharovs has never been finished, and this guy has only come up short against studs in his pro career. Even his last amateur loss to Lewis Lee Scott, who's actually getting an opportunity on the Contender Series this season. But the combined record of the three guys that have defeated Zaharovs is 20-3. Absolutely crazy the level of competition he's gone up against, and he's gone to the scorecards with every single one of them. I expect him to survive the early grappling onslaught of Campanella, and I think he'll start to cruise in the second and third rounds here as he batters Campanella en route to a decision victory. Next up, we got Dean Garnett coming in at minus 320, going up against Thomas Gronvall, who comes in at plus 210. I think Garnett will be able to dictate the pace of this matchup, and that will be the ultimate difference maker. Gronvall is very scrambly and difficult to deal with his own grappling game, and we saw him make his fights against Khurshid Kakarov and Kieran Clark much closer than the odds suggested, which is why I have a little bit of pause in this matchup with Garnett. Garnett will be a few weeks shy of his 37th birthday when he throws down this weekend, but I think he still has enough bite here to cause Gronvall a ton of trouble. I think this will be a matchup where we'll see Garnett utilizing his combination striking and his damage-based approach to really touch up Gronvall, and I think that's going to ultimately cause Gronvall a ton of issues. Look for Gronvall to try to get this into the grappling realm, but Garnett is a BJJ black belt and a very good scrambler in his own right, and I think that's going to make it difficult for Gronvall to get to his game. Look for Garnett to win this matchup on the scorecards, but I think twice about taking that kind of chalk in a fight that could play out much closer. All right, next up, we got Ibragimov coming in at minus 1,000, going up against Matis Duragrin, who comes in at plus 550. Ibragimov is a very solid prospect who went 7-0 as an amateur and is 9-0 as a pro. He calls Manchester Top Team home, which is also home to featherweight, UFC featherweight, close to being a contender, Lerone Murphy. But we've also seen Ibragimov go over there to Dagestan, which is where he was born, and mix it up with the Usman Nurmagomedov and the Nurmagomedov clan. And I think that often showcases in his game because he is such a relentless grappler, and he's going up against another guy in Duragrin, who often looks to grapple his opponents as well. But I think Ibragimov is the better scrambler. I think he's much better in terms of implementing his control. I think he has the better gas tank as well. But again, I don't want to completely count out Duragrin in case he is a special talent that this matchup could end up being his coming out party. With that said, I still think Ibragimov wins this matchup. I'm just going to pass on -1,000 though. All right. Next up, Movsar Ibragimov coming in at -280, going up against Gerardo Fanny, who comes in at +185. I believe that the two Ibragimovs I've just spoken of are not related. Movsar is from Belgium, and Ibragim is actually training out of England. So I could be wrong, but I don't think they're related. But Ibragimov went 21-4 as an amateur, 6-0 now as a pro. Utilizes a little bit more of a striking game than Ibragimov does, or Ibragim does. But he does obviously get to his grappling when he can, and that's where he often finds success. And he's going to have to lean on that here as he takes on a nasty Dutch kickboxer in Gerardo Fanny. Fanny could torch the lead leg of Ibragimov and cause him some trouble there. I think he might be the slightly more technical striker, but I think that the overall mixed martial arts advantage of Ibragimov will be the difference maker, but I don't want to completely write off Fanny. We have seen Movsar get hurt in the past, and Fanny's more than capable of replicating something like that. Ibragimov has shown the ability to battle back from adversity, hence his undefeated pro record, but I still have some question marks as he takes on tougher competition with every passing fight. But I'm going to go Ibragimov and Ibragimov by decision. All right, next up, we got Khamzat Abaev coming in at -140, going up against Chiquina Noso Pedro, who comes in at +110. Now, Abaev has been getting a lot of hype because, one, he shares the same name as Khamzat Chimaev, or at least first name. He also shares the same nickname. So I've seen a lot of people be like, hey, maybe this guy's the second coming of Chimaev. But after running the tape, I don't think so. Chimaev was much more dominant during his regional come-up, whereas Abaev, there were a few guys he was able to get out of there quickly, but there were some spots where he found himself on his back and getting grinded out by certain guys. He did manage to still win some of those fights and obviously, showcase that he has good enough cardio to go 15 minutes if he needs to. But he's facing a much more experienced guy in Pedro who really, thrives in the grind. A guy that really likes to get things a little bit more grueling than most opponents like. And that allows him to just break them and then eventually pull out on the other side where he's able to either finish them or win fights on the scorecards. His last PFO fight against Ibrahima Mane, that was a close fight, split decision loss, but that could have gone the other way as well with the type of grinding we've been seeing from Pedro. And if he can avoid the early finishing nature of Abaev, I fully believe he can go out there and grind Abaev down, take away the finishing threat from Abaev, and then either get a finish of his own late. We've seen him showcase some nasty chokes in the past as well, or go out there and grind this fight out. So at plus money, I'm happy to take a shot on Pedro here, and I think he has decent enough durability to deal with whatever Abaev's throwing back his way. All right, next up, we got Boris Mbarga and Atangana coming in at -5,000, going up against Bruno Santos, who comes in at +1,200. I saw Atangana up at -10,000 just yesterday. So a little bit of, volatility love, if you want to call it that, coming in on Santos. But this is a squash match. Atangana went 8-0 as an amateur, 5-0 as a pro now. I think he squashes Santos. I think this is a clear spot for Atangana to, try to gain a couple more fans and showcase how dangerous he actually is. But we do not parlay -5,000. All right, next up, former UFC fighter Gaetano Pirrello makes his PFL debut, coming in at -135, going up against Salvatore Liga, who comes in at +115. Now, Pirrello went 0-2 in the UFC back in 2021 and was sent back to the regional scene after that. It took him about 2 years to get back into the game, and he ended up facing a fighter who he had a rubber match with, and he ended up just grinding that fight out and winning it on the scorecards. Pirrello is a big power puncher, does not have much of a ground game, and that's what's definitely going to be tested as he takes on Liga, who is a undefeated 5-0 BJJ black belt, although he hasn't been all that active in his mixed martial arts career. He turned pro in mid-2017. He fought once a year from 2017 to 2019, returned 2.5 years later, then took another 3.5-year hiatus before returning in February. But he is very crafty in the submission game and grappling game. The issue has been his activity level. I think Pirrello is so bad on the ground that I will pick Liga to win this matchup, but it's hard to get behind actually taking a shot on him because of the level of inactivity as of late and the fact that Pirrello has been a smidgen more active, even though not as much as you would like to see. But Pirrello will have the striking advantage, but I think Liga is slimy enough to get this fight into the grappling realm, which is where I think he'll eventually find a submission within a round and a half. All right, very fun co-main event here. Very much looking forward to this matchup between Taylor Lapilus coming in at -225, going up against Ali Taleb, who comes in at +185. I don't completely understand what the UFC's issue is with Taylor Lapilus. He has a 6-2 record with them over the 2 stints that he's been with them and has been now cut twice by them coming off of victories. Last time around, it was a win over Vince Morales in September where he stopped the takedowns and picked him apart on the feet, utilizing his classic striking game. He has a long reach, 73-inch reach, where he utilizes to just keep opponents at bay and chip away at him from there. And his takedown defense, holds up for the most part, unless he's facing guys that have a little bit more of a creative way of getting fights to the ground, just like Batchelor showed. And I think he's facing a guy in Ali Taleb who can showcase a similar type of approach. Now, Taleb just won the PFL MENA tournament back in November, and I think he's one of the better fighters on this PFL, or just the PFL roster, period. I think he's an absolute dark horse. This is a guy that had an absolute banger with current streaking UFC bantamweight Vinicius Lockdog Oliveira, and he was able to knock him out in the 3rd round of their matchup. This is a guy whose lone loss came to eventual PFL Europe champion Khurshid Kakarov in a matchup where he hurt him badly in the 1st round, but seemed to empty his gas tank too early, allowing Kakarov to cruise to a decision win in the next 2 rounds. I think that was a great learning lesson for Taleb, who I think will be able to pick up his biggest victory to date with a victory over Taylor Lapilus here. I think we'll see him utilize his explosivity and his ability to mix it up in the grappling realm to cause Lapilus a ton of trouble. I know Lapilus normally has that reach advantage that keeps opponents at bay, but Taleb is just as big as him, if I'm not mistaken, and I think that will help him with the physicality of Lapilus, allowing him to get this fight into the grappling realm, the clinch realm, and really keep Lapilus away from getting comfortable picking him apart from distance. So I'm going to go Taleb here. +185 is a great number to get a fighter of his talent level, and I think he'll be able to pick up the biggest win of his professional mixed martial arts career, probably by decision. All right. That brings us to our main event now, where we got fan favorite Patrick Habirora coming in at -1,000, going up against Danny Roberts, who comes in at +550. Habirora is a solid prospect. Kind of reminds me of Morgan Sherrier with the type of support this guy had on the regional scene. We know Sherrier, not a superstar in terms of, or at least I shouldn't say, a super talented fighter. He's like a middling UFC featherweight or bantamweight at this point in time. I believe that's what division he's at. Maybe lightweight. Can't remember off the top of my head, but that's kind of what I see for Habirora. He's athletic, he's powerful, he's fast, and the speed is what he relies on a lot in his matchups. He's 6-0 as a pro so far. Faced mediocre competition pretty much the entire way. That Catalin Safta fight was very impressive considering how game and usually how durable Safta is as well. But this will be a true test for him, going up against a guy in Danny Roberts who has over 4 times the pro experience that Habirora has, but also a massive strength of schedule advantage as well. Roberts is a guy who went on a 3-fight losing streak with the UFC and got cut from the promotion back in mid-2023. Was a guy that was showing glimpses of success even in those losses, but it was ultimately his inability to take big shots from his opponents that kept him from getting his hand raised. And that's been the issue. Even in that loss against Francisco Trinaldo, he lost that fight by decision, but he was getting knocked every which way in that matchup by the powerful striking of Trinaldo. And that could end up happening here against Habirora, but Roberts might be the slicker striker, technically speaking. He's fast, has some decent pop in his shots as well, and he's faced a much tougher strength of schedule as well. If Habirora can't put Roberts out within the first round and a half, this fight will surely be much more competitive than -1,000 on Habirora makes it seem. I will pick Habirora to win this fight in terms of a prediction, but in terms of a bet, I would never recommend parlaying him at -1,000 here. He should win. He should get the knockout, but we know sometimes in mixed martial arts, when you expect a guy with a bad chin to just go out there and get knocked out, sometimes their chin shows up and they make it much more competitive, and Roberts absolutely has the ability to do that here against Habirora. So if you want to take a little bit of a sprinkle on Roberts, I wouldn't hate it, but in terms of official prediction, I'm going to go Habirora and Habirora by knockout. There you guys go. PFL Europe, just about 25 minutes. I always try between 50 and 20 minutes with these breakdowns, but I want to give you guys the information that I've been able to uncover when I research these matchups. So hopefully these predictions bear fruit for you guys. Reminder, confident picks, confident plays, all that stuff, look in the pinned comment below. Otherwise, good luck on all your action, and I will see you guys again on Sunday for the UFC Nashville breakdowns, which I believe is headlined by Derek Lewis and Taliesin Teixeira. Can't wait to break down that fight for you guys. But first, hopefully we can make some cash this weekend with PFL Europe after cashing our PFL Mena lock of the night play this morning. See if we can keep it going tomorrow. All right, I'll see you guys on Sunday. Good luck on all your action. Peace.